Research and the Munich Community Music Action Research Group. In this video, I aim to enable a deeper understanding of how action research can be used in community music research. I'll start by introducing action research as a research method and reflect on the challenges and benefits of using action research in community music. Then I'll share an example of a successful action research project, the Munich Community Music Action Research Group, which was part of my PhD research. First, I'd like to talk about the origins of action research. The term action research was first coined by Kurt Lewin in the 1940s. In his essay, Action Research and Minority Problems, Lewin describes action research as research on the conditions and effects of various forms of social action and research leading to social action. Other origins include Paulo Freire's liberationist perspective, the Teachers as Researchers movement in England in the 1960s, and community development. So there are multiple action research traditions, but participatory action research is the tradition most closely aligned with my research. It builds on the work of Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. It is probably the branch of action research closest to community music in terms of its principles, due to its goals of emancipation, empowerment, and participatory democracy, highlighting social problems and building capacity in the community involved in the research. Its key principle is that everyone participating in the research process does so as a co-researcher, not just as a research subject. The research process in action research is a cyclical process of action and reflection which integrates knowing and acting. So it's a way of integrating theory and practice, scholarship and activism, and numerous perspectives tied to the particular context, place, time, and life history of each person. This resonates with the principles of community music. Somek developed 8 methodological principles that underlie action research. Several of her points, for example, collaboration, social transformation and social justice, reflexivity, powerful learning, and context specificity, in particular, resonate with community music. The diagram here represents the process followed during my PhD dissertation project. I did pilot interviews in Munich, which led to reflection, which led to me setting up the Munich Community Music Action Research Group. That in turn led to further reflection and then to a number of other developments. In this video, I won't follow the usual format of separating out the research stages. That's useful when talking about other research methods. With action research, the processes don't follow a clear order as with other research methods. They often happen over several cycles, holistically, rather than in separate steps, until a decision is taken to intervene in this process in order to publish its outcomes to date. Action research challenges the traditional notion of the role of the researcher as an objective outsider. It sees the researcher as part of the research process, acknowledging the ability to actively influence the process through the research. Action research involves intervention not only as a main feature during the data collection, but as an explicit goal of the research. For this reason, it's paramount to reflect openly on your role and positionality as a researcher in an action research process. To support this, Hare and Anderson provide a useful continuum of positionality, which describes 6 positionalities. These range from insider to outsider, based on different research traditions, validity criteria, and resultant different contributions. The 5th position is an outsider in collaboration with insiders. This positionality is linked to the work of Paulo Freire. Greenwood and Levin suggest that the processes of action research are consistent with Paulo Freire's concept of conscientization. If you are working with action research, often you will find you have multiple positionalities. For example, being part of the research for my dissertation, My role was based somewhere between the 5th and the 6th position. I was aiming to contribute to the creation of knowledge by collaboratively researching community music in Munich. I wanted to improve, critique and practice by individually and collaboratively analysing and reflecting on community music practice in Munich. And I was seeking organisational development or transformation by collaboratively developing community music in Munich. The second positionality also applied to some extent because I was an insider in collaboration with other insiders. That was because I grew up in Munich and participated in many community music projects as a child and teenager. I also worked as a community musician for over 10 years, mostly in the UK, but also in Munich. I chose action research because it offers one way to bridge the gap between scholarship and practice in community music, and to further both of them. Action research is a research approach with the same spirit that moved me when I was involved as a practitioner. It allowed me to see the experts in Munich as partners in my research and not research subjects. It allowed me to see them as people who I do research with and not to. This approach to change is what drew me to community music in the first place. Another reason I chose action research is that I was interested in the co-construction of a discourse about community music in Munich with the group. I was interested in what synergies might develop as a result of the Munich Community Music Action Research Group's meetings. I wanted to document and analyse those developments through my research, to collaboratively examine whether community music could contribute anything in German music education. So, my main research question was, how can the concept of community music contribute to the practice and development of community music in Munich? But first, I had to understand the broader field in Munich. Therefore, the first research questions I asked were, what activity that could be considered community music exists in Munich? And what practices, practitioners and organizations have intersections with my understanding of community music as an intentional intervention? How do they see their practice and the field more generally in Munich? I started by immersing myself in the field, observing workshops, performances, conferences, and interviewing people who worked in the field. As a result, I gained a deeper understanding of the field in Munich. I was also still in the process of understanding which practices in Munich had intersections with community music and which did not. It was as much a sense-making process to inform my own thinking as it was a process of finding out about the broader thinking within the field. I also wanted to understand the perspectives of practitioners and thinkers in Munich, bearing in mind that at the time, community music was an almost unknown concept in Germany. So I conducted 28 semi-structured interviews focusing on the participants' personal views about their own practice and the underlying principles. Through these interviews, I further refined my own understanding of the field. After transcribing the interviews, I clustered together the recurring themes. The understanding I gained throughout the interviews provided a baseline for my research. The interviews illustrated the thinking of practitioners, their critique of the field, and their vision for change at the time. I responded to the findings by initiating the Munich Community Music Action Research Group. The aim was to fulfill the need for exchange expressed during the interviews and to give the participants a space to start a dialogue, develop a network, their practice and thinking collectively. Action research seemed to be the research method most closely aligned to these needs. The group emerged from the interview phase. I invited everyone who was interested in participating. The core group consisted of 8 participants representing art practice, arts administration and arts research. My role in the group was to participate, to document and facilitate the processes, and to analyze them collaboratively with the group members. Let me now look at how the meetings worked. I'll summarize 5 of the group's meetings to give you an idea of the process that the group went through over a 2-year period. The meetings usually lasted about 2 hours. Between meetings, I had many exchanges with the group members individually, reflecting on thoughts of processes triggered by the group work. I recorded these in my research diary. The first meeting took place at the University of Music and Performing Arts in Munich, thanks to my supervisor, Professor Dr. Wolfgang Masnack. He attended the first meeting to show the university's support for the research project. After introducing ourselves, everyone showed a picture to illustrate their understanding of community music and themselves. This helped us to get to know each other better. Then the group decided on the format and content for future meetings. We would have one discussion theme per meeting, and each meeting would take place in a different location, hosted by a member of the group, so that we could get to know each other's workspaces. We would also have a moderator to lead the discussions and keep them focused. The second meeting took place at the Freie Musikzentrum, the Free Music Center, hosted by Michael Reitmeier. The meeting focused on developing a shared, context-specific definition of community music in Munich, the first one in the German language. We looked at existing international definitions and applied them to local issues, trying to find appropriate German terms that related to the German context and the disciplines we worked in. We continued working on this definition after the meeting, using an online tool so that everyone could work collaboratively. The definition we developed includes elements of the established English language definitions such as participation, access, active and lifelong music making, but it also includes references to German-specific discourses such as community music being part of kulturelle Bildung, this is arts education, and sociocultural developments. The third meeting was hosted by Tom Bieburger at the Munich Center for Community Arts. The focus was on identifying areas for development in community music in Munich. For this, we used the 9 domains of community music developed by Skippers and Bart Lied to categorize our thoughts and made recommendations for the development of community music in Munich. After the meeting, Kitty von Korff proposed that we hold a community music conference in Munich. This led to a major development of the group later. The fourth meeting was hosted by Matthias Fischer at the administration of Upper Bavaria. It focused on community music's relationship to policy. The 2 arts administration representatives in the group explained the funding practices of their organizations. As you can imagine, the other group members had detailed questions about funding practices and criteria. They gave their input and suggested ideas for collaboration with the funding bodies. The 5th meeting took place at the Department of Arts and Culture, hosted by Kitty von Korff. The participants talked about the developments within their organizations. We then discussed quality criteria in community music based on sound census practitioners' code of conduct and the arts education criteria for quality developed by the Bundesvereinigung Kinder- und Jugendbildung, a national German organization for arts education for children and young people. We then collaboratively developed the idea for the Munich Community Music Conference that Kitty had suggested in the 3rd meeting. Subsequent meetings focused on organizing the conference and defining the roles that the group members would play. In the evaluation meeting, we focused on evaluating the process leading up to the conference and the conference itself. The group decided to continue holding regular meetings, but to open them up to anyone involved in the field of community music in Munich. This led to yet another major development from the group, more on which later. In the analysis meeting, I presented the results of my analysis to the group and asked for their feedback. We discussed the issue of anonymity and decided that in my dissertation I would introduce each member of the group, but keep the identity of the individual speakers anonymous in the transcripts. I made transcripts of the group meeting recordings available to all members of the group, over 200 pages of text. In 2018, I sent the group the entire dissertation text to get their critical feedback again on it, which I incorporated into the text before submitting it to the university. So let's now talk about the developments resulting from the group work. The group has made many steps to develop community music, both through the development of their own thinking within the group, but also through developments beyond the group. As I already mentioned, after the third group meeting, Kitty von Korff suggested that we should organize an international community music conference in Munich, interweaving theory and local practice. This idea was then developed by the whole group. The Munich Community Music Conference took place in November 2015, hosted by the Munich University of Applied Sciences. It was supported and funded by these organizations because of their connections to the members of the group. The conference represented a key development of the Munich Community Music Action Research Group and a milestone in the development of community music in Germany. With 47 speakers from 13 countries, the conference was attended by over 140 participants. The group hosted a panel session focusing on how to further develop community music in Munich, targeted specifically at local practitioners. Interestingly, participants in this session all expressed the view that they needed a community music network. This confirmed again my findings from the pilot interview 2 years previously. Let's look in more detail at another major development of the group. The editor of the International Journal of Community Music, Lee Higgins, invited the group to edit an issue focusing on community music in Germany, making it the first ever publication to do so. This was yet another result from the group efforts, in collaboration with Professor Dr. Theo Hartog. In a sense, this journal issue was also a development process. The authors were asked to individually explore community music in relation to their own discipline, research interests, or contexts, for the very first time. However, while the group worked mostly in relation to local practice, the authors of this issue, who came from all over Germany, examined community music from a research perspective. The process of curating the issue and its publication can be seen as another intervention in the German context. In 2017, we published the first German language book about community music, with chapters from each member of the group, and the first ever German translations from English-speaking community music authors. As I mentioned earlier, after the conference, the group decided they did not want to continue working in the existing closed format, but instead wanted to open up the group and contribute to sustainable and lasting change in Munich. Kitty von Korff of the Department of Arts and Culture of the City of Munich and Matthias Fischer, pop music officer of the administration of Upper Bavaria, decided to fund a regular community music salon in Munich, open to all practitioners interested in networking and professional development in the field of community music. The Munich Community Music Salon is still going strong and growing, with cooperations across Germany and participants from across Germany. In 2015, Burkhard Hill initiated the first community music module at a higher education institution. Community music projects at the Munich Center for Community Arts and at the Munich Philharmonic Orchestra were developed by members of the group. The work of the Munich Community Music Action Research Group shows the developments that are possible through the approach of action research. For me, it has been a way of bridging research and practice in my PhD research and continuing on the journey of understanding community music in new ways.